Rowan, thank you for coming here to Germany. You've written regular columns in GQ, Condé Nast Traveler, The Times and The Guardian, and today you're the editor-in-chief of the worldwide renowned science and technology magazine Wired UK. So for you, work has always been very meaningful, and that's why you also published in June the magazine with the topic of Build Something Meaningful, the rise of the mission-driven digital business, and we are happy that you're going to tell us a little bit more about the content of this issue and about what you think about meaning and innovation.
Danke. Guten Tag. Nice to meet you. I am a relic from the industrial past. I make a paper magazine. And we have digital channels, and we have conferences, and we have a consulting business, but we still make at the heart a beautiful, expensive to produce, highly designed, color-corrected magazine. Because we're all about telling stories of the people pushing the world forward, and we're all competing for engagement, for attention with all your messaging apps. And so the form factor of the magazine still attracts that attention. And my job is mostly being on aeroplanes, going to see the crazy ones, the entrepreneurs trying to build the future. I think 125 flights in the last year at the back of the aeroplane to save you the trouble. And what I'm noticing is, particularly in the West Coast and also the hubs of startups in Europe, from Berlin to Stockholm to London, there is a growth curve of businesses that define their purpose not simply by pursuing profit, but by doing something useful for the world, by building something that they define as meaningful. The word that you hear at the most is a purpose-driven business, and there's different definitions of what purpose is, how it overlaps with meaning, but essentially it's trying to challenge the Milton Friedman view that business is there to keep the shareholders happy. And I'll give you a couple of examples of why some of these companies are finding profit is being boosted by having this very focused social mission. I'll talk about why it's happening now and why it's even more important now. And then I'll talk a little bit about how companies can achieve this way of thinking in an era where, because so many sectors are being commodified by the network, innovation becomes the key differentiator. So Anna said, about 4 months ago, we published a special edition of Wired, which we have arguments about what the cover line should be. The final one was Build Something Meaningful. I wanted Screw Your Laundry App, but the boss didn't like that one. But essentially, we keep hearing of really pointless apps that are getting very, very large amounts of funding. And there's a culture in the tech world of, well, let's try and build something and then somebody will buy it. We'll sell it to Apple or Google or Amazon and we'll make some money. And that culture is being challenged by people like this, Aya Badir, who came out of a design background. She was at MIT Media Lab as well, and she wanted to help democratize people's ability to invent, to create. And she came up with a business called Little Bits, which involves modular electronic components that you can just stick together, and suddenly you can build a circuit that has buzzers and bells and loudspeakers. It's a bit like a modular kind of Lego with electronics. And she's built a business that is a for-profit business. It's raised quite a lot of VC money. But it's also a business where from the top, from her own role, she's very determined to create a culture around the mission of the business, which is democratizing invention. And they have a Slack channel where every day they're sharing user feedback across the whole company of the 75-year-old woman who suddenly found that she was back as a 15-year-old because she was making something cool. It's the school children whose teachers are saying, you know, wow, we made this little vending machine, and suddenly the kids are excited about science. And she talked about, when I went to see her, the benefits that you have being a company with a mission, with a purpose. One of them is you attract talent that leaves better paying jobs because they want to do something useful with their lives. And she has attracted people from the likes of Google and Facebook who've taken very, very large salary cuts. Another benefit is when you're building a business, especially a startup, you're probably going to die. At 90% of startups, according to figures I often hear, don't make it through. So what gets you through the lows as well as the highs? It's a resilience, it's a sense that you're doing something bigger than just building a revenue stream. And I talked about the benefits of having a longer term focus that protects you, that builds you. And also she said one of the third benefits is if people can sense that you're an ethically purpose-driven business, they want to help you. They've got better deals with partners and suppliers because other people believe in the vision. And it's about building a culture of quality business. You know, you go into their office, it's a New York-based business, and even the drinks machines they've hacked using their own products. And she talks in a kind of fairly compelling way that, yes, we're for profit, but if that's all that you're aiming at, that'll define how you act. That'll make you treat other people in a rather more ruthless way than you need to. There's a founder on the left that I spent some time with last week. Her name is Christina Sass, and these are her co-founders of, well, this is Jeremy, her co-founder, of a company that's got a very big mission. It's trying to meaningfully empower the talent of Africa to make Africa both a more tech-driven place, but also a place with better, less corrupt leadership. Andela is the first startup that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife have funded through their non-profit. But it's a for-profit. And what Andela does is very, very selectively pick talent through an online application and then train them, pay them whilst it's training them, bring them to Lagos, to Nairobi, give them skills in code, and then arrange for work placements in some of the biggest companies that need that tech talent. And it's a huge and difficult vision, but they're executing it at scale. It's a mission, but it's also a for-profit business. We'd have been very lucky if we'd have had a chance to invest early. It's going to be a very big business. So I guess of the 3 points I want to make is the why, putting meaning at the heart of building a business gives you an unfair advantage. Julie Hanna is President Obama's ambassador for entrepreneurship. She also is an investor, but built up a company called Kiva that does microloans and is a for-profit. And when I talked to her, this edition came out of a conversation I had with Julie around a dinner table, and we were both getting very frustrated why there were so many rubbish ideas that were getting funded, when yet there were so many big problems like education that nobody was jumping on, nobody who had those resources, that smart mindset, that energy. And she talks about various surveys that she's been working on. If you are trying to attract the talent of the new generation, more and more of them will not work for you if you don't meet their ethical expectations, if you take shortcuts. It's a difference between the 30-plus generation. And there's also Deloitte and other surveys that seem to confirm that you're going to keep the best staff, and they're going to be more motivated and not going to be watching the clock if they feel there is meaning in their work. And Julie Hanna was stressing, when I talked to her, that it's not either profit or purpose. They emphasize and amplify each other. They are false multipliers. And there's a bunch of other companies in the digital space that are growing very, very quickly, to a large extent, I'd argue, because they are built around delivering meaning in a business-like way. Perry Chen co-founded Kickstarter, which is a rather transformative business. People are raising all sorts of money without factories, without huge teams. This was 2 years before Apple talked about a smartwatch. The people behind the Pebble watch found that the crowd really wanted it. And Kickstarter is a great business, but it's also focused around their mission to kill the monoculture. With corporate, especially America, you don't get that many choices about what products you get, what culture you get to consume. And so they want to empower anybody to be creative. And we're talking to Perry Chen, again, we both saw lots of other companies pretending to be purpose-driven in their corporate social responsibility, in their brand, but not actually really giving very much. So what Kickstarter did was move from being a simple profit-driven company to being a public benefit corporation last year, which still encapsulates its commercial for-profit role, just in a framework that forces it to abide by certain values, certain standards, giving away a percentage of their profits to art-based charities and organisations. Talking about which campaigns, for moral reasons, for belief reasons, they will not allow on Kickstarter. And these are some of the most motivated people you'll see, and it's exciting, and I think because they're going to work in a way that they're not thinking about it as work, they're thinking about it as a way of achieving this goal of democratization. And you all know some famous examples. One of the inspirations for Perry Chen was Patagonia. Not many clothing companies would take out commercials asking people not to buy clothes. But it's been really good for Patagonia's business. I think the last annual reports I had was something like $600 million coming through. They even created a part of the company called Wornwear, where they would repair your clothes for you rather than encourage you to buy new. Because Patagonia wants to provide the clothes that allow you to have that adventure lifestyle, and also to preserve the external conditions on the mountains, on the lakes, that mean they'll still be in business. So they have to put an environmental core at the heart of what they're doing as a benefit corporation. This is not the sort of thing your standard for-profit CEO will say. But that positive environmental impact creates a meaning which builds very high commercial value. So everywhere you look in startup land, you see success correlated with a strong sense of social mission. These two gentlemen created a business selling eyewear, Warby Parker, but they did it partly to challenge the overpriced branded eyewear you can get, most of which is owned by one Italian company. But also they wanted to do something useful, so every time you buy a pair of glasses, somebody else who can't afford it gets another pair of glasses. very, very fast growing company, valued at over $1 billion. In fact, their retail stores, it's gone from online to retail, have the second biggest per square meter revenue of any store apart from the Apple stores, which is partly because their customers buy in to that meaningful mission. So everywhere I'm looking, I'm noticing this. This is a team of people who run a club in a very old 18th century house in Soho in London. It's called the House of St Barnabas. The club, where you can go and have business meetings, hang out at the bar, used to be a shelter for homeless people until it kind of was left for a few years, and it was taken over by an entrepreneur who runs a restaurant chain. But he wanted to create a club with a social purpose, so the people who work in the club are former homeless people who are trained to be waiters, to be bartenders, so they now have skills for the job market. And the people who go into the club as customers, they don't necessarily need to know this. They're just going into a club. But there's something that energizes everybody involved because they know they're doing something useful. And I read quite a lot about this, about what motivates people. How do you get talent to do things beyond per hour? And I still find the best starting point is this book by Daniel Pink, where he looked at the science of motivation. And he concluded there were 3 things that workers who were motivated were typically looking for. He said algorithmic type of jobs, if you're at the supermarket checkout, fine, pay somebody €1 more per hour, maybe they'll be more efficient. But almost every other job, money gets in the way, because that frames the relationship between employer and worker as a financial transaction. Often you get worse performance if money becomes the defining relationship. What Daniel Pink said people want are 3 things. We've heard a bit of them this morning. Autonomy, a sense of freedom to pursue that project in their own way. Mastery, a sense that they're going to get better at something through their work. And purpose, a sense that they're not just doing today's task, they're part of a bigger project. So that's kind of the why there's a benefit. But what about why now this matters? It matters because our economy is being automated at an exponential speed. And that means if we humans are going to have a place in tomorrow's workplace, we're going to need to rethink this relationship, the economy. And I'll just give you a couple of examples about why automation and the smart machine in particular are transforming the workplace more quickly than we probably expect. Just think of your own behaviour at the moment when you're driving. You usually do this. It's going to be very different, probably within 5 years, when you're doing this.
Oh my gosh, this is I'm not touching it at all, and it's right.
So this Tesla downloaded software by itself overnight to become autonomous, and there's going to be a lot of autonomous cars on the roads sooner rather than later because they're going to save lives. The World Health Organization thinks about 1.2 people are killed every year from human error driving. So the health authorities, the insurers are going to push for this to come sooner rather than later. And it's big trouble, I think, for the big car companies whose meaning has been, buy our car, it will give you an identity. It will tell the world that you're sexy, that you're rich. It's not going to be the same when you won't buy a car, you'll buy access to the network, and it will just be about mobility rather than signalling your identity. How quickly is robotics moving into the mainstream? This company, Boston Dynamics, started making robots for the military. It's now making robots for the warehouse. Google bought them and then got a bit bored playing with their robots, and they sold them. Somebody said ah. This is a robot. You don't need to say ah. But they do like to tease their robot at Boston Dynamics, which I don't think is a very wise idea. But this is just going to be more mainstream. Uber published a very interesting 98-page report recently about its next plan to develop vertical takeoff electric autonomous flying cars, flying vehicles. This is not round the corner, this is coming closer and closer. This is a Chinese company. In January, it exhibited its vertical takeoff drone that will carry you across the city. It's called Ahan. No steering wheel, just this GPS-controlled touchscreen device.
We have the application designed for EH-184. After setting up the flight plan, user can take off on any location, sit, relax, and enjoy the flight.
This may be how you'll be getting around Munich soon. But just the speed of innovation, the fact that these are being now tested. This is a Chinese company, there are companies in Slovakia. Larry Page has put $100 million into 2 flying car companies. Machine learning is moving so quickly, it's not just the big companies. This is an open source piece of software called Neural Talk. You can download, put on your laptop. This guy's walking around Amsterdam and the machine through its webcam is seeing what's happening. And if you see at the top, it's describing very quickly what it thinks it's seeing, and it's doing it very accurately and also more quickly than I can read it. And so many human jobs are not going to be needed because the machine is so good at doing this. I'm going to give you a little test. I'm going to see how good you are compared with the machine at reading what somebody is saying. Can you read what this lady is saying?
Place Balloon M1 soon.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. Anyway, this LibNet, which was created by some Oxford University artificial intelligence professors, they released this a couple of weeks ago, was about 93% accurate compared with professional human lip readers who were 56% accurate. How good is the machine now at doing human creative tasks? Have a listen to this soundtrack on this video. This music was written by an AI. Sorry, piano players. Chopin tomorrow may not be a human because the machine is getting better and better at learning. Or you probably saw that this London AI company beat the world's champion at the hardest game in the world called Go,
No,
which is a gazillion times as hard as chess.
I didn't know my game.
This is the European champion, then it beat Lee Seidel, the world champion. Many years before the experts thought this was possible, so there's an acceleration happening. And it means AI companies like Sentient, the best funded AI company in the world at the moment, are working in healthcare. They're working with hospitals to track patients coming out of surgery to spot the signs of sepsis. They're working gambling on the publicly listed stock market. Well, not gambling, because their results, seeing patterns, are actually better than humans. They're also working with e-commerce companies, able to optimize what you buy at the point of sale. No humans needed. For instance, they've realized that when we're buying something on an online commerce site, we don't want to pull down menus and make choices, we just want to click on pictures. So what this does is as you click on something, it provides extra choices based on parameters of that picture. The color, the shape. This is all an AI generating this in real time. Huge uplift in click-throughs and purchase. So every sector, think of pharmaceuticals. Berg is a company in Boston that's using the AI to design new combinations of molecules to treat illnesses. If the machine seems to think it has promise, then they start developing it in a lab. It's reverse engineering what the pharma companies does. The AI is also now able to tell the emotion of a crowd. This is a company called Sitecore, scanning a crowd in real time, These boxes don't just tell you the demographic, this is a Caucasian male 46 to 49. These bars tell you the percentage in real time of happiness, sadness, anger, disgust, all sorts of other emotions. And that's just at the beginning of this whole era where reality is being virtualized and the machine gets very good at simulating all sorts of things inside games or Microsoft
where your digital world is blended with your real world. Now we can.
So, we're in a world where the machine is able to do lots of things that we were able to do, more effectively than the human. Education hasn't nearly started to catch up with producing the humans that can still do things that the machine doesn't need to do. We're entering new virtual worlds which are more powerful in some respects than actually being at the Madonna concert, if you can actually be in the virtual world and go and explore the auditorium. There was a copy of American Wired about 6 months ago that even had a cover story suggesting that we won't even need to learn to code because the code is going to get really good at writing code. So the third point and final point I wanted to make was how do human-based businesses compete? Many of us probably still want a place in the workforce. You do things that the AI still can't do very well, and how do you add meaning? You have to think in a beautiful, human, creative way, and every company nowadays wants this thing called innovation. You can't really buy innovation by creating a corporate innovation unit. Innovation is a kind of approach to constantly rethinking, take this idea, add this idea, see what potential outcome, be prepared to take risks that don't work. And I'll give you just one or two examples of what I think can help generate the conditions in a business for this kind of thinking. Tony Hsieh built up a business that sells shoes online, sold it to Amazon for about $1 billion, and he's obsessed with how you organize your workplace in a way that encourages creative thinking, encourages essentially a party atmosphere where there'll be chance encounters, because he thinks that is going to keep Zappos fresh, always ahead of where the consumer's expectations are. This is their office. It's like it's not your conventional corporate office. And they are based in the downtown part of Las Vegas, which is not the glitzy part, it's the very poor part where you can't really buy fresh fruit in the grocery stores. And he's got a mission that he's investing $350 million of his own money to try and turn this downtown area into a cluster of cool, innovative, creative businesses. And he's building public theatres, nurseries, bringing in cool restaurants and startup clusters. But the way he's approaching it is what he calls the 3 Cs. He wants to build a space where different types of people from different places, they come together, they collide, and they learn together, and they connect together. And I think they are the core conditions to protect a company, even a big corporate. You need to find a way of understanding how the fresh startups are thinking. And I think a lot of these West Coast companies are influenced by Burning Man. 80,000 people build a city in the desert for a week in August. It's a no-cash economy. They clear up. It's about bringing everything you need, radical self-reliance, but also radical creativity, creative expression. You get the most amazing art coming out of this temporary city. Somebody brought a jumbo jet there this year, and you get this. And it's partly, you wouldn't get Airbnb were it not for that kind of way of thinking. So now the workplace needs to evolve, and there's a lot of co-working spaces. This is one in London called Second Home, where, yes, you've got your private studio agency can work, but you've also got the communal space where you can learn from each other. And I think in a corporate world, that is really important. Jeff Immelt at GE, big industrial legacy company, 300,000 employees. Well, how do you compete when somebody can go to Kickstarter with an idea for hardware? You compete by working with the startups. He's working with a startup where the crowd designs cars, and they can build cars, and they created a workspace together with that crowd-based car company, Local Motors, so anybody can come and prototype a product. You don't have to be employed by anyone, you can come off the street. This is in St. Louis, because if you want to prototype a new refrigerator or air conditioner in GE, it may be 2 years and $20 million. Here you can do it in 8 weeks and maybe $50,000, and if it's got promise, then the parent company will take it in. So I'm going to leave you with, I think, our physical space as a conditioning factor for creating meaning in our business. This building's just opened in London, next to St Pancras, and it's possibly the most important building that's gone up in Europe in the last couple of years, because it's designed to solve cancer and a whole bunch of genomic illnesses in a new kind of way. It's funded by the Wellcome Trust and Cancer Research UK. It's called the Crick Institute. It's huge, but it has no internal walls. And it's bringing together people from different backgrounds with different skill sets to confront these big problems in fresh ways. So the biochemist will run into the data scientist, who will run into the visualization expert, who will run into the nanotech expert. And when they were applying for planning permission from the local council, County Council, they wanted a restaurant area where everybody could get together, and the council said, no, we want you to use the local restaurants, so we're not going to allow this restaurant inside. So Paul Nurse, the Nobel Prize winner who's running the building, went back to Camden Council and said, so when Crick and Watson were working in Cambridge to discover the double helix of DNA, you know, they solved it over sandwiches in the pub, in the Eagle pub, when friends came over, looked over their shoulder, made suggestions. They said to Camden Council, if you don't let us have that place where anybody can drop by, you will hold back the discovery of cures for cancer. So they got their restaurant. Thank you for listening.